Hello and welcome to another episode of B2 Beast. We got another beast in the building, ladies and gentlemen. He is a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, and one of the world's leading cybersecurity experts. Currently the owner of Innovative Technologies. We are honored to have on the show Tracy. Paul, welcome to the show, brother. It is an honor to have you here. How are you?
I appreciate that so much. I'm thrilled that you're willing to have me on.
Hey, my pleasure. We see people doing big things, exciting things out there in the B2B space, and you are definitely one of them. So excited to jump into this chat. Question number one, quick little curveball for you. What are you most grateful for right now?
Grateful for right now. Grateful for everything, my man. I don't really know how to focus on one thing. You know, business is good and life is good. And so I'm just every day as it comes and be grateful for what you have.
There it is. That's the only purpose of that question, is to plant a little seed of gratitude. And even if it's for everything in your world, equally exciting. So let's tap into your story, your world. You've had a really interesting, really exciting career. Let's simply boil it down to a super exciting moment or a milestone moment that you've had. What is the most exciting win you would consider of your career, of your entrepreneurial journey, of anything you've done in the B2B or in just any enterprise business space? What wins do you have, and what lessons and stories can we kind of extract and learn from that?
So I think the biggest thing for me and probably for most business owners, right, is the pandemic hit, and we're in tech. And so supporting healthcare and mental health care and schools and so forth was an immediate challenge. Right. We always love to plan for things and go forward. There was no plan. And so, we were able to move all of our clients through that, get them the solutions that they needed. No one was ransomwared. And that was not the case for a lot of other companies out there. And so that's a major win for us.
Yeah, you're not alone in the pandemic pivots, the pandemic shifts, some of the most dramatic pivots and shifts that I have seen in business were during this moment. Everybody was thrown into there. So yeah, key lesson that we see over and over and over is the power of adaptability. And Lord knows, I can only imagine in like tech and cybersecurity how quickly that adapting needs to happen. So brilliant to hear that you guys are able to keep your head above water, stay ahead of the game when the tides rise and when things start to get messy. That's the whole purpose of a lot of that infrastructure to kind of finally pay off when those moments hit. So brilliant to hear that. Let's hit the other side of the spectrum. The wins are fun to talk about, but let's get a little dirty here too. What is the most epic failure that you have under your belt in your career? Maybe it was early in your career, early in your entrepreneurial journey. What failure have you experienced, and what lessons can we learn from that so that we can avoid moving forward here?
Well, there's definitely always more failures than there is success, right? And I think that's a misconception sometimes. I've failed a lot. The business has failed. I've failed personally. I've failed my employees. Things happen in business that you can't, forecast or put on a map. But I think that's always a learning situation. So one of the big ones for me was underestimating the gap between the education that small and medium-sized business market needed on cybersecurity and tech in general, versus the enterprise level who knew they needed it and they were spending the money, they were just mismanaging, right? So a completely different animal. And I left an enterprise environment because I thought it was completely unfair that giant corporations had the resource, didn't manage them properly, and therefore they weren't using them. And small businesses were just left out to die. Right? Like, if you're Pepsi and you get a $100,000 ransomware, you probably pay the ransomware, you have some downtime. If you're a small business, $100,000 will put you in the grave, right? And so that's the problem we're trying to solve for. And the gap between the education that was needed we severely underestimated that.
Wow. So yeah, there's a little bit of a knowledge, market awareness, like paradox of those that can afford it, don't leverage or use it properly. And those that desperately need it and would use it, can't quite access it. So it does, open up, this lesson. I guess the lesson extracted here is really understanding, your consumer, your client, these small and mid-sized businesses, understanding that void needed to be filled prior to anything after that. So deep empathy, deep awareness of your client, your customer. We see that over and over, as a success point of how and why stuff succeeds, or the exact opposite. They didn't listen to what was being told over and over and over, and it leads to that failure. So brilliant to hear, and yet another reinforcement of those themes. Now, I want to find something maybe a little bizarre, a little weird, a little interesting. I know you're in cybersecurity, and this space definitely has some weird, dark corners of people and projects. So I'm curious, along your adventures and your journeys, what is the most bizarre, just weird project or person you've encountered in this adventure so far? Would love to see if there's any exciting intel from your world that we could share with folks.
Boy, that's a tough one, to be honest with you. I try to, come down on what bizarre is. We've seen, from a cybersecurity side, we see all kinds of crazy things, right? Somebody's computer gets hacked because their kid was maybe doing something on the internet they shouldn't have been seeing. And there's certainly some personalities out there in tech. I always think, like, if you're in tech and you're dealing with the stress that we do, you got to have some kind of release, right? And so I'm a little weird in that I'm an avid Frank Zappa fan. And so you got to let the weird freak thing out somewhere.
Yes.
Right? So we all have a thing, I guess.
Oh, I love it. No, it's everywhere. No, I just know from some of my time in cybersecurity, Web3 world, there's just some wild, bizarre characters and projects that pop up throughout it. So yeah, not surprising to hear stuff like that. Well, let's jump into more of your expertise, your knowledge. Clearly, you're doing something right over there. So we want to unpack the secret sauce, as close as we can get to the recipe for your secret sauce. And one of those things is habits, daily behavior. I recognize this is a keystone for success. So I am curious, what habit or task is non-negotiable for you, is just has to be part of your day or your workflow? What have you found has to be part of your process?
Two things, really. One, daily, I have to have my hands in the marketing and in that world, because it's vital, given my past answer about educating your potential clients, right? That's super important. But I think one thing I always do is put at least an hour, minimum an hour, to learn something new in business, regardless of what it is, right? I was very grateful and honored to be able to meet with some, rather large celebrities over the last year. And Marcus Lemonis had said something to me that really stuck. And that was that every successful business that he's seen in his career, the owners all shared one thing, and that was a willingness to invest in themselves. And I really took that to heart. And so that's, it doesn't matter where it gets in, whether you're driving, it's audible, whatever you're doing. But be taking in new information and new content and learning about business, because it's an ever-changing monster.
There it is. That is seen over and over. I'm not quite at the level of Marcus, but I can echo the same threads I see over and over and over, is that continued evolution and willingness to just innovate, adapt. What are the new ideas, strategies? Let stuff break. It doesn't always have to be at like a theoretically like academic, like perfect level, especially with how fast stuff is evolving. Staying in tune with podcasts like this and industry-based shows really helps give you an edge over other folks. So love hearing that. Yet another dose of another person that adds to that same breadcrumb theory of success really is about investing in yourself and playing that long game. It's difficult to see those results of, I'm going to listen to podcasts today and I'll make more money tomorrow. It's like not exactly how it works. So play the long game, invest in yourself, personal, professional development. It all goes up and to the right. So brilliant to hear that. So maybe in the same vein of your habits, your structures, your day-to-day workflow, let's jump into maybe any tools or technology that you leverage in your business, in your life. What tool or application do you consider a must-have? Or it can be a tech stack of tools if you really want to get nerdy.
Yeah, I generally try to avoid the super nerdy bits for benefit of everyone else. I'd say today that really, to be in business, if you don't have an advanced security stack protecting your devices, especially for people that have remote workers and so forth and people traveling, you really need to be on top of that, because it's deceptive how fast things can change. I have furniture in my office from an engineer who I didn't know at the time was selling everything. He had to close his business because he was ransomware locally.
Oh, no.
And I was on Facebook, man, and I saw some stuff, but I'm like, hey, I could use a couple of those desks. And I went down, and he was going out of business because he was ransomware. And his provider had told him that he needed better backups, and they just didn't push him to do it. And so it's those kind of things where, from my standpoint, these are the minimums, and you have to have them, because it can literally end your business. 2 years ago, it was every 40 seconds in America, there was a ransomware attack. In 2023, we're down to 11 seconds. So the probability is not a low probability that this is going to happen.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is, those are some enlightening stats, especially the trend and momentum of where it's heading. So yeah, let's not abandon that thread quite yet. How does one recognize, approach, and prepare for this problem? Whether they could be starting from zero, or they have an existing system that they think they can trust, but they want to make sure it really is foolproof, like top to bottom. How can somebody approach that? And that might lead into what we're looking for in the context of any specific process or strategy or approach that you have in your business. Maybe those merge together here in this question. But it is extremely alarming. And I know many people listening right now are probably in the like, they did exactly what I did, was, that's, yeah, but not me. Yeah, that happens, but not me. So how do we break out of that and prepare for something of this scale?
So part of the thing I always say around here is never stop auditing, whether that's yourself or your team, your business, or the clients that I manage. And so the way we do that is we have a third party that does what's called a penetration test on our networks every month. And so what happens is no one would let their children grade their own homework, right? And so, we don't do that. We're looking at our stuff all the time. And so it's easy if you've ever tried to proofread a paper, and you've read a sentence 5 times incorrectly and then went, how did I miss that? It's the same thing, except this is all numbers and code and a bunch of that crazy stuff. So where we want to start is having an objective third party look at your current systems. And basically what that entails is they pretend that they're hackers and they try to get in. And so then that gives you a rundown of your highest vulnerabilities to your lowest and what you need to fix in order. And then however you go about creating that plan to remediate those issues depends on budget and a bunch of other business things, but really understanding where you start and understanding what today's vulnerability is the best place to get going.
Huge. Yeah, these are very vital. So in the context of starting that process of developing an audit system and some type of infrastructure upgrades, how does one start that? And what pitfalls or like what should be on their checklist when they're looking for somebody that they can trust with this role, this very, very vital role?
Well, it is. It's not super invasive, but it is. People are going to show you where your passwords are and where they shouldn't be and so forth. So you want to make sure you do some vetting. Obviously, before you let somebody do that, you absolutely want to make sure that they're approaching you with an NDA before they begin any of that work, right? So that you know that your stuff is going to be held confidential. You don't ever want to start any kind of that audit thing without having one of those in place. Okay. Just my legal team is so happy I'm saying that.
Crucial. No, that is a brilliant. Do you have any other pieces to add to the checklist here when somebody's approaching that process, or the opposite, pitfalls to maybe look out for and make sure, hey, if the company's doing this, maybe avoid those type of things? Anything on the negative direction to avoid in that process?
I would certainly look at the testimonials and reviews from other folks about the process that they went through. Generally speaking, especially with tech things of that nature, that high of a nature, if somebody's upset, they're generally going to say something. So just knowing that company has a long-standing reputation of doing that, you'd probably like to see some other qualifications that say they should be doing that. They should have a CISSP on their team. They should have a lot of things in the tech. There's probably just a ton of acronyms that wouldn't make a lot of sense. But just do your due diligence before you let somebody into your network.
Crucial. Yes, so vital. Grateful for you to share these with us. The whole goal here, whether hopefully this can plant the seed of prevention, because it's just one of those things that you never really think about it until it's too late. And even that phrase is so cliche, so it's totally understandable how this keeps getting, deprioritized, kind of pushed back. It's invisible until it isn't. So brilliant to hear your insights, your advice, and everything in there. Which leads us to kind of an interesting paradox when it comes to marketing and big business, is the level of complexity that is attached to technology and cybersecurity and compliance. So much complexity under the hood. But on the marketing side, on the front end side, when you're trying to sell and build relationships, our goal is to make the conversation as simple and as straightforward as possible. The gap between where you start and where you have to be for marketing and sales conversations, in my head, is daunting and overwhelmingly difficult to boil down such complex things to a simple offer or product. So I am curious personally, and hopefully some of the listeners too, is how do you approach marketing or packaging such complex services in a simple and concise way?
It's a struggle. There's no doubt about it. I've been doing this for over a decade now, and it's definitely a struggle. What I've found is that, in terms of a pen test, we use an analogy to a home inspection. When you buy a new home, you want to know where all the weaknesses are, if there's anything you need to replace. Security and compliance, there's an analogy I use about cars where security is a seatbelt, right? It's your brakes. Compliance is when the cop pulls you over because you weren't wearing your seatbelt, right? And so, trying to fill those gaps, to take these very technical ideas and bring them down to things that we all deal with, because at the base, the concept is the same, right? No one would go on vacation for a month and leave their house completely unlocked, windows open, those kind of things. And I think you just have to bring it down to a place or an experience that we all have, that we all share, that's still the underlying protecting what you own, what you've worked for. And in this case, there's a bunch of technical stuff that does that, but the fundamentals aren't any different.
That's brilliant. No, and I think you immediately, whether it was intentional or not, you already alluded to one of the strategies here, which is analogies and storytelling, metaphors. Seems very bizarre and kind of abstract at first, but the way we consume and interpret and understand information, if it's in a simple story in a picture, like I saw the house with the windows open and the front door, like it plants the exact seed that you need. So that alone, whether that was intentional or not, was a perfect example of how to really reshape and reframe your product in the eyes of the client. So love that. Thank you for sharing more of your secret sauce. This will definitely be put to use. So when we wrap up here, we got a quick blitz round here, and then we'll hear from your world, how people can plug into you, your company, your services. We'll jump to that and then get to our closing here. So these will be a quick speed round. You're going to get 2 options. You get 1 response, and ideally no explanation with your response. And we'll just rip through these 5 real quick to see what type of a man Paul Tracy is. Number 1, super simple. Music or movies?
Music.
Boom, there we go. All right. Next one, very crucial from a tech guy. Apple or Android?
Android.
There we go. All right. Now, this one is a really key signifier. Backstreet Boys or NSYNC?
Can I abstain?
Paul Tracy has abstained from question number 3. Number 4, board games or video games?
Oh, video games.
Loving it. All right, last one. Night owl or early bird?
Both.
Ooh. There we go. Well, there's a nice little paradox. Skipped 1 question and got 2 answers for another. That evens out to 5. Amazing. Thank you for sharing more of that. So you've shared a lot of your advice and intel with us. Now, how can we do the opposite? How can we support your world, your service, your company at the moment? Innovative Technologies seems to be full-scale cybersecurity compliance, top to bottom. I think I even saw web design, all of the literally getting it done for you as well. Can you give us a quick overview of who exactly you help and how they can get in touch with you for any services or problems or packages or audits, perhaps, that you have on deck?
So basically, we're trying to help small and medium-sized businesses protect their data and their customers. And that can range usually from anywhere, someone with 20 employees up to 300 employees, depending on the services. What we're trying to do is use security and compliance to better the culture inside the company, increase efficiency, reduce risk, and make it a better company. And you can do all that through tech. You can reach out to us on our website, upstatetechsupport.com. You can certainly reach us on LinkedIn or DM me on LinkedIn as well, because we're always on the LinkedIn. And that is actually me answering those messages, is not somebody else. Very dedicated to paying attention to the feedback we get from people.
Perfect. No, that is amazing to hear. We'll have all those links loaded up for you guys to rock and roll. And yes, LinkedIn is where the party's at. That's where we connected. That's where we synced up. And there's just so much brilliant big business and personal brands too that are starting to pop up and kind of make their impact, their waves. It's not as nearly as stale as it used to be. So very exciting to be a part of that. That leads us to our final question. The beast mode mic drop. This is where we're going to hand the mic back to you one more time, Paul, because there's a listener here that has the intel. They know what they need to do. They've got all of the technical details and prowess, but something just hasn't quite clicked in here. And there's got to be an internal motivation for people to move forward in business and their career and life in general. It doesn't always have to be business related. And you have been a brilliant example of persevering through that over an extended duration and eventually finding that success. What final words of advice or motivation can you share with the listener today?
The worst thing I've ever done in my business is wait to do something I knew I should do. Doesn't matter what it is. That bottom line, do not wait to do something that you know you should do.
Boom. That is it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Paul Tracy.
You're a beast.